What if I told you that by the time the national unemployment rate actually ticks up on your news feed, the real economic damage was already done, like 6 months ago?
Yeah, that's the uncomfortable truth of it, really.
Right. I mean, you wake up, you grab your coffee, and you see these massive, reassuring headlines declaring the economy is heading for a soft landing.
It sounds fantastic on paper.
It sounds incredible. The official forecasts say everything is stable, joblessness is under control, the storm is past.
Right.
But then you walk into your actual office. You sit down at your desk, you look around, and you feel this distinct chill in the air.
The vibe is just, it's off.
Exactly. The budget for that new software tool suddenly gets heavily scrutinized.
Yeah.
The hiring request for a junior role that was supposed to be like a rubber stamp approval is now mysteriously sitting on a VP's desk for a month.
Or indefinitely, yeah.
Right. And your colleagues aren't casually talking about jumping ship for a 20% pay bump anymore. There's just this general sense of friction.
Which is why today's topic is so crucial.
So today, we are taking a deep dive into an incredibly insightful piece of market analysis. This was published on May 21st, 2026, by Peter Morgan, the Managing Director of Byron Thomas Recruitment.
They're a boutique executive search and accounting recruitment specialist over in Sydney.
Right. And it is a vital piece of analysis because it completely bypasses that superficial layer of how we usually talk about jobs and the economy.
Yeah, we are going to look squarely at their analysis of the 2026-27 Australian federal budget.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is to look beneath this very calm, seemingly placid forecast of a 4.5% unemployment rate.
Because there's a lot hiding under there.
There really is. We want to uncover the hidden risks, the policy ripples, and the underlying shifts in hiring confidence that directly impact you.
Whether you're a business owner looking to hire or a professional considering your next move.
Or just someone trying to read the economic tea leaves, to understand where things are actually heading, this really matters.
Absolutely. The labor market is the ultimate engine of the economy, but it's an engine made of human decisions.
Yeah. And to be clear, we aren't here to sound an alarm or create panic. That is not what the data suggests at all.
No, not at all. What we're doing is taking a clinical look at how labor markets actually function beneath the smooth surface of macroeconomic data.
Right. We have to look at the gears turning underneath. So before we can truly understand that friction you feel in the office, we have to look at the actual numbers the government is projecting.
We need to understand why those numbers, as comforting as they might seem, don't tell the whole story.
Let's start with the Australian government's budget paper number 1. Tell me what the Treasury is actually forecasting here.
Well, if you look at the official Treasury forecasts in that budget paper, it paints a picture of incredible resilience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they explicitly state that the labor market is well placed to withstand slower economic growth. The actual projection sees the unemployment rate rising very gently from 4.25% in the June quarter of 2026 to 4.5% in the June quarters of 2027 and 2028.
Okay, so a tiny bump.
Right. And then it eases back down to 4.25% by 2029-30.
I mean, on paper, that is the textbook definition of a soft landing. It's a gentle glide down to the tarmac.
Right. No crashes, no massive spikes in joblessness.
But at the exact same time, the budget forecasts that real GDP growth, like the actual growth of the economy, is going to slow down.
Yes, significantly.
It's dropping from 2.25% in 2025-26 down to 1.75% in 2026-27.
Which is a real drop.
So how can the economy slow down that much without jobs taking a massive hit?
Well, that tension between slowing GDP and a supposedly stable job market is the core thesis of the Byron Thomas analysis.
Okay, break that down for me.
The thesis is profound, but often overlooked by traditional economists. It's that labor markets rarely weaken evenly.
Like, it's not a uniform thing across the board.
Exactly. It is almost never a uniform phenomenon. And more importantly, hiring slows down significantly well before the unemployment rate ever spikes to an alarming level.
Oh, I see. So the unemployment rate is effectively a lagging indicator. It's telling us what happened, like, months ago.
Precisely.
If I'm a business owner and I see my sector's growth slowing down and I'm dealing with higher costs, my first move isn't to walk onto the floor and fire 10% of my staff.
No, of course not. Mass layoffs are incredibly disruptive.
Right. They're terrible for morale and usually a last resort. My first move is to stop adding new variables to the equation.
Right. You start seeing these invisible micro-behaviors taking root across thousands of businesses simultaneously.
Like that. What's a micro behavior?
Well, let's look at the delayed replacement role. Say a mid-level manager resigns.
Okay.
In a booming economy, HR has a job ad up that afternoon.
They need a replacement immediately.
Right. But in a slowing economy, the business decides to distribute that manager's workload among the remaining team members for a few months.
Oh, wow. Just to, see how things go.
Exactly. They delay the replacement or consider the startup ecosystem.
Right. Startups operate totally differently.
Yeah. A founder looks at the cooling economic growth and decides to stretch their current financial runway.
Because capital is getting tighter.
Right. Instead of hiring 3 new developers this quarter as originally planned, they hire none. They push their existing team harder to make the current capital last an extra 6 months.
And it's not just the employers pumping the brakes. The candidates change their behavior too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
If you are currently employed and you hear all this talk about slowing growth and tighter margins on the news, you become incredibly cautious.
The devil you know suddenly looks a lot better than the devil you don't.
Exactly. You become nervous about jumping ship to a new company where you would be the newest hire.
And therefore, potentially the first one let go if things turn south.
Right. Last in, first out.
This creates a phenomenon that Peter Morgan describes as friction.
Friction. I like that word for it.
The unemployment rate hasn't necessarily jumped because people aren't losing their jobs en masse, but the fluidity of the market has seized up.
So the jobs aren't being created as quickly, and the people aren't moving as freely.
It's like molasses has been poured into the gears of the labor market.
And we are already seeing little flashes of this reality piercing through the calm forecast, aren't we?
We are.
If we look at the latest Australian Bureau of Statistics, the ABS labor force data from April 2026, it adds a much more immediate warning signal.
Yeah, that data was quite revealing.
In that single month, seasonally adjusted employment actually fell by 18,600 people.
Which is not an insignificant drop.
No. And the unemployment rate ticked up by 0.2 percentage points to hit that 4.5% mark early.
Right. It hit the forecast ceiling immediately.
It reminds me of checking a weather app.
Mm-hmm.
You look at your phone, and the app's long-term forecast says it's going to be a mild, pleasant 20 degrees today.
So you dress for a mild day.
Exactly.
Okay.
But then you actually step outside your front door, and you get hit by a biting cold wind.
That's a great analogy.
The Treasury forecast is telling you one thing, but the ABS data is the cold wind you actually feel on your face.
The forecast is an aggregation, right? A smoothed-out average over time. But the ABS data is the present, localized reality.
Let me push back on this for a second, though.
Sure, go ahead.
If 1 month of ABS data doesn't definitively prove a long-term trend, aren't we just reading too much into a minor statistical blip?
It's a fair question.
I mean, employment numbers fluctuate all the time based on seasonal work, school holidays, whatever. Why should we doubt the official Treasury forecast based on a slight monthly wobble?
It is a completely fair point to raise. 1 month is absolutely not a trend.
Right.
However, the reason we need to scrutinize the official forecast isn't just because of one bad month of ABS data.
Okay, then why?
It's because the official forecast, by its very nature, tends to ignore the messy human reality of how businesses actually behave in real time when they are squeezed. Ah, okay. The human element.
Exactly. The budget itself links the slower economic growth to higher global oil prices, persistent inflation pressures, and weaker real household income growth.
Those are massive, heavy macroeconomic factors.
Right. And the Treasury model assumes businesses will smoothly absorb those pressures while neatly maintaining their hiring plans.
Which never happens.
Never. In the real world, hiring follows confidence, not just current workload.
That is a crucial distinction. Hiring follows confidence.
When costs are rising and household spending is dropping, a business owner doesn't wait for the national unemployment rate to hit 5% before they react.
They react immediately to their own profit and loss statement.
Exactly. The official forecast is mild, and as Morgan points out, that mildness is exactly why it demands scrutiny.
It glosses over the very real reactions to economic pressure.
It does.
Which brings us to a really fascinating part of this deep dive.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting. If the headline numbers are masking the reality, and the national unemployment rate is a lagging indicator, where do we look for the truth?
You have to look at the leading indicators.
Exactly. Where do we find those? According to Byron Thomas, you look at the people who handle the money.
The finance and accounting teams.
Now, earlier I might have called them the canary in the coal mine, but that feels a bit passive.
Right, they aren't just sitting there.
No, it's more like they're the seismologists. They are the ones watching the needles on the graph jump, seeing the tremors deep underground, months before the earthquake actually shakes the building.
That's a much better way to look at it.
So why is it that accounting and finance professionals see the economic downturn before anyone else in the company?
Because they're the ones staring at the raw data before it gets spun into a glossy, optimistic quarterly report by the marketing department.
Oh, that's so true. Marketing always puts a positive spin on it.
They have to. But finance is closest to the actual mechanism of the business.
Okay, so walk me through that.
Think about how an economic slowdown actually manifests mechanically. It doesn't start with a memo from the CEO.
Right.
It starts with margin pressure. Let's say the cost of raw materials goes up by 8%. But the sales team can't raise prices because customers are already pushing back.
Who's the very first person to see that margin compression?
Exactly.
The commercial analysts. They are looking at the unit economics every single day.
Right. And then it spreads to cost escalation. The electricity bill goes up, software subscriptions increase, logistics costs creep higher.
And the financial accountants are the ones processing those invoices.
Yeah, they are seeing the cash burn rate accelerate in real time.
Wow.
Then you have debt servicing pressure. If interest rates are high, the monthly cost to service the company's loans eats into operating cash.
And the finance leaders are the ones trying to manage that shifting covenant with the bank.
Exactly. It all hits finance first.
And cash flow strain, too. When an economy slows down, clients take longer to pay their invoices.
Oh, definitely. A comfortable 30-day payment term suddenly stretches to 45 days, then 60 days.
The business might be profitable on paper, but if the cash isn't in the bank, they can't make payroll.
Right. And the credit and collections teams are the ones making those awkward phone calls, trying to get that cash in the door.
So by the time the broader labor market catches up, by the time the HR department realizes they have a hiring freeze,
or the sales team misses their annual targets.
Yeah, the finance team has already been fighting a rearguard action for 6 months.
They have already sounded the alarm to the executive board.
So if you want to know what the hiring market is going to look like in 6 months, look at the hiring patterns within finance and accounting today.
That is the big takeaway from their analysis, yes.
Let's look at what the major institutional players are saying, because this isn't just a theory from one boutique recruitment firm.
No, the big players are seeing it too.
What are the major institutions like the Reserve Bank of Australia and the major professional services firms actually projecting right now?
When you synthesize the data from the major institutions, a very clear consensus emerges that completely corroborates this early warning signal.
Let's start with the Reserve Bank of Australia.
In their May 2026 statement on monetary policy, they are explicitly expecting labor market conditions to ease.
Okay.
They are forecasting unemployment to hit 4.7% by mid-2028 because weaker economic activity is going to directly weigh on labor demand.
That's higher than the Treasury's 4.5% ceiling.
It is. And how are firms like Deloitte and KPMG modeling this?
Yeah, what's Deloitte saying?
Deloitte Access Economics points to a severe slowing of employment growth.
Okay, so not necessarily job losses, but a slowdown in growth.
Right. They are forecasting that employment growth will slow from 1.8% in the calendar year 2025 down to a mere 1.1% in 2026, before it eventually improves. But that is a massive deceleration in the rate at which new jobs are added.
And KPMG?
KPMG is observing a similar trend. Their labor market update expects unemployment to trend towards 4.4% by the end of 2026.
Okay.
They noted that annual employment growth had already slowed to 1.1% by December 2025.
So the slowdown is already happening.
Exactly, and they expect it to weaken even further as demand across various sectors cools off.
I see. And PwC and EY are framing the budget as this delicate balancing act, right?
Yes, they are.
PwC highlights the struggle between managing immediate global shocks and implementing long-term reform,
Right.
while EY specifically warned that the budget spending measures needed to be incredibly careful.
It's because of inflation.
Exactly. To avoid adding to the very inflation pressure that is causing this slowdown in the first place.
What's fascinating here is that the message across all these institutions is decidedly not that the market is collapsing.
This isn't 2008. The sky is not falling.
No, the word they're all essentially using is moderation.
Moderation.
Yeah.
The easy phase of hiring is definitively over.
Right. We are transitioning out of that post-pandemic sugar high where companies were hiring just to hoard talent.
Yeah, the FOMO hiring. Now, employers are becoming fiercely cost-conscious.
Very much so.
If a manager asks to hire a new team member, The executive team is going to demand a rigorous business case proving the commercial value of that specific appointment.
Which brings us to a crucial turning point in the analysis.
Because it's not just inflation.
Right. If it's not just global inflation and oil prices causing this caution, what else is driving it?
And Peter Morgan's analysis points the finger directly at domestic policy.
He argues that some of the new tax reforms hidden within the budget are going to directly impact the jobs that haven't even been created yet.
Now, I want to pause here and make something incredibly clear to you listening.
Good idea.
We are about to discuss some major policy shifts. The capital gains tax overhaul and the changes to negative gearing.
Right.
Our absolute rule here on the deep dive is that we do not play politics. We are not taking a stance on whether these are good or bad policies for the country overall.
Policy always involves trade-offs. The government pulls levers to achieve certain social or economic goals.
Exactly. So we are going to impartially frame these policies strictly by their stated government intent.
And then focus entirely on the market and investor concerns.
Right, regarding how these changes affect hiring and job creation, as reported in the source material.
Our focus is entirely on the secondary ripples those levers create in the labor market.
Let's start with the capital gains tax, or CGT, overhaul. Here are the facts as laid out in the budget.
Okay.
The government is replacing the existing 50% CGT discount. Instead, they are implementing a system that taxes real capital gains above the rate of inflation.
Right.
And they are introducing a 30% minimum tax on capital gains starting July 1st, 2027. The stated intent behind this policy is fairness and sustainability within the tax system.
Which is a clear goal.
Right, so walk me through the mechanics of how that impacts the job market,
Yeah.
specifically in the startup and venture capital sectors.
To understand this, you have to understand the life cycle of venture capital.
Yeah, okay, explain that for us.
Startups do not operate like traditional businesses. A traditional retail business sells a product, makes a profit, and uses a portion of that profit to hire a new employee.
Right, cash flow funds the growth.
But a startup hires before they are profitable. They need to hire software engineers to build the product, sales teams to find the market fit, and operations teams to scale.
How do they pay these salaries if they aren't making a profit yet?
They pay them using capital raised from investors, venture capitalists.
And those investors are taking a massive risk. I mean, most startups fail.
Exactly. The investors only put their money in because they are banking on the future growth of the company.
And eventually an exit.
Right, like the company being sold to a larger tech firm or going public, where they will make a large return on their initial investment.
And that return is a capital gain.
Precisely. The engine of startup employment is capital formation.
Okay, I'm with you.
So if the government changes the tax rules to reduce the net return on those high-risk investments by implementing a 30% minimum tax, the behavior of capital inherently changes.
Because the math changes.
The capital becomes cautious. It's basic risk-reward mathematics.
If the reward is smaller due to a higher tax burden, investors will demand higher underlying returns to justify the risk.
Or they might just take fewer risks overall.
They might favor investing in more mature, less risky businesses rather than early-stage startups.
Exactly.
And the founders themselves have to look at the landscape. If raising capital becomes harder because the tax incentives for investors have shrunk, founders have to rethink where they're going to build their company.
And that's what the industry is worried about.
Right. The source cites analysis from BDO, Forbes Australia, and the Australian Financial Review.
They all highlight deep concerns from founders and the venture capital community.
Yeah, about how this CGT overhaul could affect the competitiveness of Australian startups.
Right. BDO specifically noted that it affects the entire venture capital lifecycle, from seed funding all the way to Series A and beyond.
So if capital becomes cautious, startup runways get stretched.
And when a runway gets stretched, the hiring stops immediately.
Those engineering jobs, those sales jobs, those finance lead jobs at the startup level, they just evaporate before they are ever posted on a job board.
Exactly. They become part of the invisible friction.
Let's look at the second major policy shift, the negative gearing shift. Again, just the facts.
Let's hear them.
The government is limiting negative gearing for new property investments to new builds only, effective from July 1st, 2027.
Okay.
Any existing investments will be grandfathered in under the old rules.
Right.
The stated policy intent here is to redirect property investment away from established housing and toward creating new housing supply to ease the housing crisis.
Which is a major issue right now.
Huge issue. Now, before we look at the market reaction, give me the 30-second ELI5 on how negative gearing actually works as a tax mechanism, because it's a term thrown around a lot.
Sure. Let's invent a hypothetical investor named Sarah.
Okay, hi, Sarah.
Sarah earns $100,000 a year at her day job. She buys an investment property.
Right.
The rent she collects from her tenants is $30,000 a year. But the mortgage interest, the maintenance, the insurance, and the property management fees cost her $40,000 a year.
Okay, so she is losing $10,000 a year on that property.
Right. Under negative gearing, Sarah can take that $10,000 loss and deduct it from her $100,000 salary.
Oh, I see.
So now the government only taxes her as if she earned $90,000. It's a way to offset investment losses against personal income.
Got it. So the government is saying from 2027, Sarah can only use that tax strategy if she is funding the construction of a brand new house, not if she buys an existing apartment.
Correct. And from a structural economic perspective, the government's logic is clear. Incentivize the creation of new homes.
Right, but again, we have to look at the immediate labor market impact.
Which is what Morgan calls a transition risk.
Because in the long run, shifting investment to new builds should theoretically support the construction industry and create jobs there.
Theoretically, yes.
But in the short term, changing a fundamental rule of the property market creates a massive pause.
Investors like Sarah, property developers, the banks that lend to them.
And the professional services firms that advise them.
Exactly. The lawyers, the accountants, the surveyors, they all hit the brakes.
They have to. They need to reevaluate their portfolios, reprice their risk, and figure out how the new rules affect their bottom line before they make any new moves.
And while they are pausing and repricing, they are certainly not hiring.
No way.
In sectors directly linked to housing, construction, finance, and advisory work, that uncertainty creates a freeze in hiring long before any actual job losses show up in the national unemployment data.
Let me play devil's advocate here, though.
Go for it.
The government isn't just raising taxes or changing property rules. The budget also announced various business and productivity measures specifically designed to support investment and innovation. Doesn't that balance things out? Does a change to the tax code really completely freeze hiring if there are other support mechanisms in place?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's not about an automatic, catastrophic destruction of jobs.
Okay.
It is about the creation of caution. It is psychological as much as it is financial.
Psychological caution.
Think about a business owner who was planning to hire a new regional manager. They have the budget for it today.
Right.
But they see these major tax reforms coming down the pipeline, and they aren't entirely sure how it will shake out for their specific industry.
So instead of pulling the trigger and hiring that person tomorrow, they say,
let's wait until the policy detail settles. Let's wait until after July 1 to see how the market reacts.
And that decision, that delay of 3, 6, or 9 months is the invisible friction.
Exactly. The job isn't destroyed, but it's deferred.
And when millions of businesses defer their decisions simultaneously, the whole labor market slows down.
It's the invisible friction.
Because capital is cautious and because hiring decisions are being delayed, the actual type of person that a company is willing to hire right now is drastically shifting.
It's a complete paradigm shift from the market we saw a year or two ago.
We are seeing a fundamental change in the DNA of the must-hire candidate.
We really are.
A year ago, the hiring mantra was absolutely speed wins.
Oh, without a doubt.
If you found a candidate who was an 80% match for the job description, you made them an offer that afternoon.
Because if you didn't, your competitor down the street would snatch them up by Friday.
It was a total talent grab. Now, the mantra is evidence wins.
Right. The end of speculative hiring.
Explain the difference.
Well, in a boom market, companies hire for growth they anticipate. They hire a head of future projects or a chief innovation evangelist.
Right, the nice-to-have roles.
Exactly. But when the market cools, those nice-to-have roles are immediately shelved.
So what are they hiring for instead?
Businesses start fiercely competing for a very specific type of talent roles that are tied directly to internal control, revenue protection, and compliance.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Peter Morgan doesn't just speak in generalities.
No, he gets very specific.
He lists 5 specific roles within the finance sector that are currently acting as the ultimate shield against this cooling economy.
The 5 protected roles.
Right. These are the roles that businesses are absolutely desperate for right now. Let's weave through them.
Okay, let's do it.
Imagine a mid-sized logistics company facing a sudden 15% spike in fuel costs and a slowdown in client orders.
They are in crisis mode.
Who is the first person they need?
The first role they desperately need is the commercial analyst.
Okay, why the analyst?
Because when costs go up and consumer demand wobbles, pricing becomes a nightmare.
Right. If the logistics company raises its shipping prices by 5% to cover fuel, do they lose 10% of their customers?
Exactly. The commercial analyst is the person who builds the models to explain those margin and pricing shifts.
They tell the business exactly where they are making money and where they are bleeding it.
They are essential.
Okay, so the commercial analyst diagnoses the pricing problem. But who ensures the company isn't breaching its covenants with the bank while margins are tight?
That brings us to role number 2, the financial accountant.
Right. In a boom, the financial accountant is sometimes overlooked in favor of the flashy strategic roles.
But when things get tight, maintaining absolute control and reporting quality is paramount.
You cannot afford a mistake in your ledger when margins are razor thin.
No. If the board demands to know exactly where the company stands on a Tuesday morning, the financial accountant ensures that data is bulletproof.
They are the bedrock of compliance and reality.
They really are. Role number 3, credit, collections, and cash flow specialists.
Oh, this one is huge.
We cannot overstate the importance of this group. Going back to our logistics company, they might be profitable on paper, but their clients are also feeling the pinch.
Right, and they are paying their invoices 30 days late.
Exactly. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is reality.
I love that phrase. Cash is reality.
A business can go bankrupt if it runs out of actual cash in the bank to pay its drivers.
So these specialists are the ones protecting the working capital.
They are managing the debtors, ensuring invoices are paid, and keeping the lifeblood of the business flowing.
In a cautious market, they are arguably the most critical operational hires a company can make.
Absolutely.
Okay, role number 4. Finance business partners.
These are the translators.
The translators.
Yeah, they sit between the pure numbers of the finance department and the messy reality of the operations teams.
Ah, I see. So in our logistics example,
The finance business partner is the one who has to go to the warehouse manager and explain, using the data from the commercial analyst, why they cannot authorize the purchase of 3 new forklifts this quarter.
oof, that's a tough conversation.
It is. They take the financial constraints and help the operations managers make better, more efficient decisions on the ground.
They bridge the gap.
And finally, role number 5, finance leaders.
The CFOs, the finance directors.
Their job right now is an incredibly difficult tightrope walk.
Why is it so hard right now?
They have to balance severe cost discipline, cutting the fat, delaying the speculative projects with the need for long-term investment.
Because you can't just cut your way to growth.
Exactly. They have to synthesize all the information from the analysts, the accountants, and the business partners.
And know exactly where to apply the brakes and where it is still safe and necessary to press the accelerator. Breaking down those 5 roles really highlights why these specific skills are in such high demand.
It's not because they are trendy.
No, it's because they provide tangible, quantifiable armor against economic friction.
They provide visibility, control, and cash.
And that perfectly sets up the final part of our deep dive.
The playbook.
Right. We've diagnosed the hidden friction in the economy. We've looked at the policy ripples. We've identified what roles are surviving and thriving.
Now, the critical question is, what exactly should you, the listener, do about it on Monday morning?
Because theory is great, but we need a playbook. Based on the Byron Thomas analysis, we're going to break down 3 practical actions for employers and 3 practical actions for candidates.
Let's start with the employers.
Action number 1, sharpen the brief.
This goes back to the end of speculative hiring. As an employer, you need to rigorously separate the nice-to-have from the critical business capability gaps.
So if a manager submits a requisition for a new hire,
The brief needs to explicitly detail how that role directly supports cash flow, cost control, compliance, revenue, or productivity.
and if the brief can't answer that question clearly,
The role shouldn't be approved. You cannot assume that just because the unemployment rate might rise slightly, talent will suddenly become cheap or easy to find.
right, the right talent, the people who can actually protect your business, will remain incredibly hard to secure.
Which brings us to employer action number 2. Be decisive, don't freeze.
This is so counterintuitive, but so important.
It really is.
When the market gets shaky, the instinct for many executives is to slam on the brakes and institute a total blanket hiring freeze.
But Morgan warns that a total freeze often creates a disaster later on, particularly in finance teams.
Because you can't just pause reporting, compliance, and cash flow disciplines.
No, If you freeze hiring and your core financial accountant burns out and quits because they are doing the job of 3 people, you are in massive trouble.
So when a genuinely strong candidate appears, someone who meets that sharpened brief we just talked about, you have to move quickly.
Do not let the bureaucratic friction of a cautious market stop you from securing a vital asset.
And Morgan offers a great warning here. Avoid the trap of trying to combine 3 job descriptions into one just to save money.
Oh, we've all seen those job ads.
Right. They want a qualified CPA who is also a data science expert and can, like, run the HR department on Fridays.
That is a recipe for a failed hire.
Be precise about what you need and pay for the specific expertise that will solve your immediate problem. And that leads right into employer action number 3, test for commercial impact.
When you are sitting across from a candidate in an interview, do not just tick boxes on their CV looking at their technical experience.
Because everyone applying for a financial accountant role knows how to use Excel.
Right. You need to interview for judgment. You need to interview for resilience.
Ask them to give you an example of a time they had to push back against a sales director who was making a bad commercial decision.
Or ask them how they handle the pressure of tightening margins.
And if you are a startup, the rule is even stricter, isn't it?
Oh, much stricter. You need to tie every single hire you make to a specific funding milestone or measurable growth metric.
If the hire doesn't help you reach the next funding round, they shouldn't be hired.
It's that simple. That is a very robust playbook for employers.
Now let's flip the perspective. What should candidates be doing right now to navigate this friction?
Candidate action number 1, reframe your narrative.
Let's actually role play this to show the difference between a boom market answer and a cautious market answer.
Okay, I like that.
Pretend you are applying for a financial accountant role, and I am the CFO interviewing you.
Okay.
Walk me through your experience at your last job.
Okay, here is the boom market speed wins answer. Well, in 2024, I managed the general ledger, I processed the payroll for 200 employees, and I oversaw the month-end reporting process.
See, in a market where speed wins, that might get you hired because I just desperately need a warm body to do those tasks.
But in a cautious market where evidence wins, that answer fails.
It's just a list of tasks.
Right.
Now give me the reframe narrative. Focus on the outcome and the impact.
Okay, take 2. At my last job, I noticed our month-end reporting was taking too long, which delayed executive decision-making.
Okay, a problem identified.
So I implemented new automated reconciliation processes. This reduced our reporting errors by 15% and accelerated the month-end close by 2 full days,
And the result?
which gave the leadership team faster visibility into our cash position during a really volatile quarter.
Boom. That gets you hired.
Because you didn't just tell me what you did. You explicitly explained how your actions improved the business.
You showed how you reduced risk. You showed how you protected visibility.
You are speaking the language of a cautious employer.
Candidate action number 2. Focus on decision support.
This is particularly crucial for those in finance, but it applies everywhere.
Employers don't just want data processors. They want navigators.
In your interviews, you need to emphasize how you have helped previous businesses navigate pressure.
Talk about a time when you had to take complex, perhaps unpleasant data and present it to leadership in a way that helped them make a better, more informed decision during an uncertain time.
Position yourself as the person who brings clarity to the chaos.
And finally, candidate action number 3, maintain perspective.
Right.
Let me jump in here because it is so easy to read these reports, look at the tightening market, and start spiraling.
It is very easy to panic.
We are talking about friction and cautious capital, but we must remember the broader context. A mid-4% unemployment rate, historically speaking, is still very, very low.
It is practically full employment in macroeconomic terms.
There are jobs out there. So as a candidate, you don't need to accept the first lowball offer out of fear.
You still have immense value.
Be selective. Look for employers who are acting deliberately and strategically, rather than those who are reacting erratically out of fear.
It is about recognizing your own commercial value in a market that now prizes evidence over enthusiasm.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started by looking at the calm, seemingly reassuring facade of the government's 4.5% unemployment forecast.
But we realized that you can't just trust the weather app. You have to feel the wind.
We dug into the early warning signs flashing in the finance sector, understanding why the people who manage the cash, the seismologists, see the slowdown first.
We navigated the complex, often invisible hiring friction caused by major policy shifts.
like the capital gains tax reform and the changes to negative gearing.
And how that caution ripples through startups and construction.
And finally, we laid out the practical steps to survive and thrive in a market that has fundamentally shifted.
It is a profound shift. And it raises a final, lingering question that I think we all need to ponder.
What's that?
When we talk about the economy, we are almost exclusively focused on the jobs we currently have.
Right. The unemployment rate measures the people who are actively looking for work right now and can't find it.
But as we've discussed, when capital becomes cautious and when hiring decisions get delayed, the real damage happens quietly.
The invisible friction.
Exactly. How do we measure the invisible job losses?
Wow.
If a startup founder decides not to hire those 3 engineers because the tax incentives have changed, those jobs just vanish into the ether.
They never show up in the ABS data.
They never make a headline. Are we so focused on protecting the economy of today and balancing the budget of today that we are quietly, inadvertently erasing the jobs of tomorrow before they even have a chance to be created?
That is a heavy but incredibly necessary thought to leave on.
It really changes how you look at the health of an economy.
It's not just about who is working today. It's about whether the environment exists to employ the people of tomorrow.
It brings us right back to that chill in the office we talked about at the very beginning.
The headline might say it's 20 degrees and sunny, but that chill you feel, that friction.
That is the sound of the future being delayed.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the underlying realities of the labor market.
It's been a great discussion.
Take these insights, reframe your narratives, sharpen those hiring briefs, and apply this knowledge to your own career or business strategy on Monday morning. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.